Well, let's talk about strategy, because I think all of us become, in some way or another, we become aware of Facebook and LinkedIn, and we join, and it kind of evolves from there. But I'm wondering if, you know, especially as sales professionals, if we need a strategy. You know, do you sit back, do you have a meeting with your people and strategize? I mean, what does a strategy look like when it's in social networking, and how do you implement it?
One of the things that's been interesting in this user-generated content world is that all the specialties that are out there are becoming more and more accessible for other people who are not in the specialties. For example, PR and marketing capabilities and tool sets are now baked into our everyday communication via, you know, Facebook, Twitter, having blogs, so on and so forth. Nowadays, what's nice is that you actually use Twitter and Facebook to become pointers to your blog entries. And so from a sales perspective, you're now at the very top of the sales funnel where you're generating education and awareness, and you know, those tool sets are really good for dealing with the very top of that sales funnel.
Well, Mark, talk about, though, I mean, since you are in this corporate structure, I mean, does it come from on high, what you can do on these social networking sites?
You know, it's interesting. They have not made an official policy. And I think it's because it is one of those things that it's a little bit, it's the new world, but they do see a spike in employees using these sites. I keep my Facebook on all day at the office. And as a sales tool, this is two big things about any of these social network sites. How many of you have said, oh wow, you see a name of someone working on a project that you've worked on before, and you try their email and their phone number, and they're no good? Mm-hmm. Guess what? Mm-hmm. That world is gone, because you're either Facebooked or LinkedIn with them or what have you. You hear about someone working on a project, you could do an instant dialogue. You may not know their email address or their phone number, where they're at now, but you're in constant contact. That's an extraordinarily valuable tool for salespeople. How many of you would go play a game of Scrabble with a client? No. How many would play a game of Scrabble on Facebook or word challenges or something like that with a client? Now it does, because all of a sudden you have a different social relationship with the client. Make sure you're getting updates, because just the other day someone said, I'm so excited, I just got a job working on this. And I went, great, they just got that job, and guess what? I just found out about it. Guess what? They've been my client. Guess what? I can now make that warm call to them.
So that's obvious. That's an obvious use of it as a sales
Tremendous.
tool. And Ben, even though I've asked the question about strategy, I'm not really getting strategy answers, which kind of leads me to believe that there is no strategy really. It's just
it's the free world out there, Deborah.
But tell me, Ben, how are you using it at Modern Video Film?
Having access to people that you normally would, it's so easy to lose track of clients that you did work with on a daily basis. There's a danger though of, and I don't know if you've had this phenomenon of, you can have very personable relationships on Facebook, but it's really a false sense of intimacy, because you see these same people on the street and you realize, oh, this is that person that I have this weird otherworld virtual relationship, and yet in real life it's a completely different thing, you know, and it's like, okay, it's okay for you to access me and talk to me when I'm, the beautiful thing about Facebook and all these other things is that it's at their convenience. You know, almost none of there's no, an actual cold call doesn't really happen. You reach out, you send these notes or these messages, and they can take them or deny them or address them at their leisure. It's not a forced, so there's a lot of, it's a very pleasant way to approach someone, and yet sometimes you develop strong online relationships which are just really witty texts or things, and when you meet these people in person, you're like, wow, I really don't like this person, or for salespeople, it's you know, it's that line of where do you become a spammer as opposed to a person who's developing. And the bottom line for me is that, sure, you can become a friend of someone on a Facebook, but it doesn't replace the relationship that you've built with a client over years of slogging it out in the trenches of post-production. So it's just a communications tool, and it's very easy to fall into the trap of only communicating through it when it doesn't, you know, you really need to maintain the real working relationship.
Well, actually, that kind of segues into a question that I had in my list and that several people have asked, so I think it's a hot question, which is, how do you keep the personal and the business separate? You know, in terms of the photos you post, the things you write. I can answer personally, because I'm kind of a super user out there, is I use all of my social networking strictly professionally, even though I have many personal friends who are my friends on Facebook. For me, my Facebook page and my LinkedIn are my brand and my public face, and so I act accordingly in terms of what I put up there and what I don't. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it.
You know, we keep talking about relationship-based and things like that. Our portal to the company online is the company website and the blog. And the blog is a more casual window to the culture. And myself and my partner and my marketing director look at everything that wants to go up on the blog, and we scrutinize that, and we're very careful about what we put up there. And it's just more of a look at the culture. So when people are considering working with us, they can look at the work, how it's meant to be presented, and they can look at the people that are doing the work and what they're into.
We do have a company Facebook page that has been really good for our educational outreach, because we're putting on a lot of events and seminars. It's helpful to invite people to it, to post links to the blog write-ups of, you know, what happened at the event after the fact. It also is helpful to see the size of the fan base. Like, are we reaching people? Do people actively have interest in our information, and can we grow that as an audience?
What about your personal? Do you have, in other words, how do you keep it separate?
My personal side of things, my rule of thumb for me is that I'm only going to post stuff that I'm really passionate or interested in. And most of my networking, like my Twitter account, I think I treat it as 100% business, but I'll post anything that I'm interested in that kind of helps show sort of the cultural side of things, of, you know, topics of conversation that I like. My personal Facebook area is probably 70 or 80% business relationships, 20, 30% personal. So it's a weird space for me, because I just assume all of my conversations need to be business oriented, but have to have something of interest to me, otherwise I just don't post them up.
Ben?
I am definitely an open book. I enjoy sharing my life and my life experiences online, and that's really, you know, I try to live in a way that there's no problems there, thank goodness. You know, for me, the delineation is really the platform. For instance, LinkedIn is a purely professional. The film and TV professionals group is a professional group. It's not a social networking group, and it's something that I have to reiterate with people and members on occasion as well. And I really see it as there's a very clear difference there, and it's what makes LinkedIn stand apart. I mean, the job opportunities that you can find on LinkedIn as opposed to a generic classified Craigslist or anything like that are worlds apart, mainly because they work so hard to keep it a uniquely professional application. Facebook, on the other hand, is obviously much more personable and
So in other words, it's all a mix for
yeah,
everyone.
it really is, and it's really the approach, and again, what tool I'm going to use and what's going to be my approach for reaching out to people. Now, in my particular approach to business, and working with my clients, you know, my strongest clients are dear friends of mine anyways. My strongest clients who are going to really fight to bring their project to my company over the objections of a studio or an executive producer or whatever the power may be that's trying to push it. The only way that's really going to give me the edge is having that friendship. And you have to be, if you're going to be a professional salesman, I used to really have a lot of trouble with that, and I think that goes back to Sales 101 as far as the type of salesperson you are and the type of person you are. Are you okay with, you know, being that prostitute? Are you okay with selling, you know, that part? And can you delineate, is it okay to be a friend and be a business partner as well, and not take it personally when they can't bring you the project?
So in other words, these questions are long-time questions that are now just projected into cyberspace?
Yeah.